from the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg. This is a special edition of Inside Government with Cedric Peterson.
To our audience here at home and around the world, welcome. You are now Inside Government. Today we continue our special feature leading up to CARIFESTA 2025, the Caribbean's premier festival of arts and culture, taking place from August 22nd to the 31st in Barbados. St. Martin will proudly join the region in showcasing our unique talent, creativity, and cultural heritage. Joining me in this edition is none other than the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, the Honorable Melissa Gumbs, who will share her insights on St. Martin's participation and the importance of this regional celebration. Minister Gumbs, welcome to Inside Government. It is indeed an honor to have you in the program.
Thank you, Cedric.
I want to start off, Minister, what does CARIFESTA mean to you personally, and what does it represent to a country like St. Martin, would you say?
I think for myself, it's my introduction to the region as the minister responsible for education, culture, youth, and sports. And as someone who's always advocated for greater regional collaboration with our immediate neighbors and our more distant Caribbean neighbors, it's definitely a chance to make that a reality. It's something that I advocated for prior to becoming minister from the floor of Parliament. And for St. Martin, I think it's a reintroduction of ourselves. Our music scene, our art scene, our fashion and film scenes have kind of exploded over the last few years, and CARIFESTA has been absent. So we haven't had this platform to be able to show the rest of the region on a collective scale what we've been up to. A lot of our artists have traveled to different islands to perform. But I think in terms of the impact of this mass gathering of culture and art and who we are as Caribbean people, I think it represents a great opportunity for St. Martin to say.
Can you walk us through the preparation of St. Martin's delegation from selection to final readiness?
Yeah, well, it's been a journey. In my early discussions with Clara Reyes, our head of the Department of Culture, I said, I wanted it to be a small but impactful delegation. I think we also have to admit that, we do have limited resources in terms of how many people we can send as St. Martin to these types of events, but I wanted us to make a good showing nonetheless. So we definitely knew that we wanted to have representation of our fashion designers, most notably in Zilla Duzon, and we wanted to have some spoken word representation as well, and music. And of course, the delegation was released yesterday by Ms. Reyes on social media. So I think from there we said, who has made the biggest impact? Zilla has done amazing things with her work, from her swimsuits to her dresses to her scarves. And her patterns. It's really been a remarkable work. For spoken word, we have Paiza going with us, and I think she's a remarkable artist when it comes to just using language to express herself and her feelings and what's happening in the world today. And of course, for music, King James has been one of our most prolific soca artists, and I think his energy is definitely going to give people a taste of what St. Martin goes through every carnival when he performs. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of that come together and really show the Caribbean what we're made of.
Minister, how does CARIFESTA, would you say, align with your ministry's broader vision for cultural development and community engagement?
CARIFESTA for me it's a return for the ministry to who we are as St. Martin, truly steeping ourselves in our cultural practices, our activities, and our history and our efforts. I think I've always said, we need to begin putting these things down on paper. We need to begin showing the rest of the region, what we are about, and let them know that this is St. Martin, this is how we are, who we are as a people. For community engagement, it kind of is one more step in the road to what has begun with, for example, our Emancipation Day celebrations earlier this year, that kind of return to that Caribbean ancestral, freedom of expression, ways of expression that I definitely want to highlight throughout my term as minister and really take us back to that feel. And community engagement, I think also the engagement of our Caribbean community. For me, bigger delegations to CARIFESTA that include larger delegations from the French side, in even Saba and St. Eustatius would be the ultimate vision, I think, because our Caribbean community is something that we don't tend to engage with or rely on as a country often enough for my liking. I think, especially over the last 5 years, that engagement has been restricted to in times of need, we reach out, but you have to be there with your neighbors and for your neighbors at all times. And I think this is a great step toward that, because everyone is going, even our next door neighbor, St. Kitts and Nevis, will also be present at CARIFESTA. So we're looking forward to expanding the engagement, not just from our local community, but also engaging diasporas of the other islands around us and those islands.
With that said, what message is St. Martin hoping to send to the region through its participation this year?
That we have something to offer. I scroll a lot sometimes on TikTok, and you have like Caribbean content creators that do know about St. Martin and that don't. And I think it's always important that if we look at the influencer wave on social media, especially when we think about marketing ourselves as a country for tourism, whether it's ecotourism, volunteerism, or just, highlighting our party life nature. For me, the priority should always be on boosting that from a regional perspective first. I think regional travel is something that every island is consistently working on, and I don't want us to miss that boat either, where we capitalize on how our Caribbean brothers and sisters can help market us and help show the world, who we are. And I think if we think about, economic development and growth and just generally engaging with the Caribbean community, that is one first step to getting that.
Yeah, you're actually mentioning and probing into the next question that I have as minister. How do regional events like CARIFESTA, you would think, contribute to national identity and youth empowerment specifically? What would you take beyond that?
It gives you the opportunity to make that stamp, to say, this is who we are as a people. And I think every island every country is really looking forward to that. From what I can see, already you can see the energy kind of ramping up. St. Kitts announced some of their participants yesterday on various social media platforms. I've seen as well from Dominica and so forth. So I think it's an opportunity to come together and celebrate our similarities for sure, because there are many, but also to highlight the very nuanced differences that make each of us, individually unique. And I think for St. Martin, in terms of our national identity, that goes a great way beyond that. We often have a discussion of we don't have an identity, we don't have a sense of who we are. And I think events like CARIFESTA, held with our regional brothers and sisters, allow us to say, no, this is who we are. We are like you, but we are also ourselves, and we are also different, just as you are. So that's the energy that I'm looking forward to. And when it comes to youth empowerment, we saw the start of what the future of CARIFESTA will be at Emancipation Day. The Art Saves Lives students participated in that, and if I had the resources, I would have taken all of them with us to Barbados. Unfortunately, we don't. Hopefully in the future, we can also partner with the business community to really represent St. Martin's young people on that regional stage, because that would be my dream, to see young people who are now embedding themselves in our culture, embedding themselves in our heritage and our history, and then being able to take that forward to the regional and then the wider global stage through events like CARIFESTA and others. So I see it as not just a one-off, it's definitely a plan for the future of how we represent St. Martin to the world.
What role is the Department of Culture playing in the coordination of St. Martin's participation, and how is their leadership being experienced on the ground?
They have coordinated everything, to be honest. I had an update meeting yesterday. We get regular updates from Clara and the rest of the Department of Culture, and I have to commend them on the hard work. Coordinating travel is not easy, even if it's just to Barbados. Even if it was just to Saba, it would have been a headache. So they've done a remarkable job on making sure that is well regulated, putting together the delegation, putting together the showcase, where St. Martin gets to really on the stage show who we are as a people. I won't share too much about that, because I definitely want everyone to see it live once it drops. I think for me, having the department being able to coordinate all of these nitty-gritty details is definitely a weight off of my head, and I definitely appreciate that. So looking forward to traveling with our peers, walking in, together, and definitely showing out at St. Martin.
To our viewers and listeners tuned in, you're now Inside Government. Coming up after this short break, more with the Honorable Melissa Gumbs as we explore cultural diplomacy, the legacy of CARIFESTA, and the lasting benefits for our artists and our community. Stay tuned. You're Inside Government.
The Ministry of Vromi, Department of Infrastructure Management, together with the Police Department, KPSM, is making changes to traffic on a section of Canagita Street and Manzanella Stake, Phillipsburg. The Canagita Street from the intersection with Percy LaBega Street to Manzanella Stake will now be a one-way street. Inbound traffic can enter Canagita Street from Percy LaBega Street and drive straight ahead or turn left into Manzanella Stake. Outbound traffic leaving town on Canagita Street must make a right turn onto Manzanella Stake. Entry further into the Canagita Street will no longer be permitted. Outbound traffic exiting Manzanella Stake onto Walter Nisbet Road can either make a right or left-hand turn. The Ministry of Vromi, Department of Infrastructure Management, and the Police Department would like to thank the public for their attention to this change. Please follow the new traffic rules and signage and drive safely.
In a country where music sweetens the ear, and every brushstroke, every rhythm, every word tells a story, the region's premier arts festival comes alive in Barbados from August 22nd to August 31st. It's a celebration of us, or stories, or fire, or rhythm. A celebration of who we are through dance, theater, film, song, and soul. Come feel the heartbeat of a region right here in Barbados. CARIFESTA 15. Barbados, August 22nd to 31st. Caribbean Roots, Global Excellence.
Welcome back, everyone. You're Inside Government. I'm Cedric Peterson, and I'm here with the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport. Continuing on my conversation with the Minister as we highlight St. Martin's participation in CARIFESTA 2025, a celebration of Caribbean unity and creativity. Minister, how can St. Martin use its CARIFESTA experience to build stronger ties with other Caribbean nations going forward? You kind of hinted about that in the first segment. I want you to expand on that for those that might just have tuned in. Yeah.
CARIFESTA for me is a platform. And like any platform, it will only be as good as how you use it after the fact. I encourage everyone that is joining the delegation, all the artists that we're taking, to, network, to make connections while they're there. That is the point of these types of events. It's not just the partying, it's not just the music, it's not just the art. It is the connections that you build with people, with individuals, with groups, who represent other Caribbean countries. And you never know. You might find persons there who have already a link to St. Martin. In my own regional travels, whether for work or otherwise, I've always come across someone who has a sibling, a parent, or they themselves that either spend time on St. Martin, live on St. Martin, or is currently here. And I think that for me is the most important thing. We recognize that, the Caribbean is already on our island. The community itself is already present. And it's how can we broaden that to build those ties, not just from an economic perspective, but from just relationships in general, for knowledge exchange, best practices, those types of things. It's always been my goal to expand that collaboration and communication with our regional neighbors. I started from a parliamentary side within the kingdom, that's a communication with Aruba, with Curacao, with Sib, and with Statia, and Bonaire, to bring them kind of into this fold of we all in this similar situation together. And I think if we look at everything that is impacting the region, climate change threatens more than just your land and your waterways. It threatens your culture. The destruction of buildings, the destruction of monuments, the destruction of art, so it's up to all of us to collectively come together and figure out how do we preserve this going forward. And I think CARIFESTA is a great platform to allow for the types of individual connections that will enable that to happen.
How does your ministry plan to leverage this experience post-CARIFESTA, especially for the benefit of local artists and creative communities?
We go back to that point of connection and communication. I've already, just by liking a post from St. Kitts' social media announcement of 2 people that are going to their event, I already received a follow and a reach out message from the same organization that is sending those 2 artists to CARIFESTA. And it's about making those connections, not for myself, but passing that along to the local artists and members of the creative communities that are going. For me, the hope would be that we rotate out who is going to CARIFESTA, so we rotate what our package is going to be when we attend this event in the future. And I see that as an opportunity for our artists to really showcase themselves, whether it's their design, their film, their music, a combination of all. And I think that it would be for them to really, take advantage of the connections that they make while there as well, and how they can use that to improve not just themselves, but also St. Martin's presence in whole.
Okay, you're kind of giving an insight into what you can expect to be the outcome, because I want to ask that. What outcomes would signal a successful CARIFESTA for St. Martin's delegation?
A successful CARIFESTA, what would signal that for me is in maybe 2-3 years that St. Martin hosts CARIFESTA. I would love to see us be the landing site for such a platform. I think, aside from Carnival, it would be the singular most mass gathering of the Caribbean community on the island. And for me, that would be a successful CARIFESTA. But as well, just to hear that the artists traveling with us, whether Zilla or Lisandro or Faizi, that they also get something out of it, and that they make those meaningful connections that allows them to elevate their art to the next level. I think everything in life, every profession that you choose, you should look to what forces you to evolve and what naturally helps you grow and develop. And I think I'm really curious to see how the interactions with their counterparts and their peers in their chosen field help them reach that next level.
In my conversation with the filmmakers in this series, I asked them the question concerning challenges that they would face as artists, and both of them basically agreed that funding is always going to be the issue when it comes to that. So the question I have for you is, cultural funding is often the challenge. So how is your ministry exploring government partnerships or public-private collaborations to support this sector?
Every area within my ministry, however, we have already begun exploring what it could look like to partner with certain agencies like Culture Funds in the Netherlands. In particular, as you look at how U.S. funding is on decline under the current administration. And public-private collaborations is not something that we explored this time around. I think it's also important to have like a sort of proof of concept moving forward before you approach certain companies and entities for, dedicated funding towards initiatives like this. But that would be my goal, that, a public-private collaboration would be something where companies commit to at least 3 years of funding the delegation the delegation that goes to CARIFESTA and to other large events such as this that allow for that wide-scale representation. And it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to exploring upon our return.
How would you encourage the general public, especially parents and educators, to embrace culture as a key pillar of national development?
What we lack here the most is, and I always hear people say that, Curaçao's Flag Day is so much bigger than ours, and Aruba, and, look at what Jamaica does and such, and Anguilla. And I say, it's one thing to say government has to go bigger, but government cannot go bigger until the participation is there. And that's something that, it's uncomfortable to say, because you want to kind of follow the logic of if you build it, they will come. But actually, when it's built, it's because the present demands it, the presence of the public. And I think, having your students and your children participate in these types of initiatives at a local level, which is why I have to again give credit to Art Saves Lives and other programs like it, from NIA, from Indisu, from Yume, and his band. Everything that they do is to get young people involved in the execution of our culture, not just the performance of it, but embedding themselves in it, embracing it, and using it to, forge their further ties in St. Martin, so that even if they go away, this is still going to remain home. This is still, where they come from. And I think participation from the general public is what I definitely want to see more of happening. We had great participation for Emancipation Day. I'm hoping we have the same for Siman Day. And in the future, the plan is to just up the ante and bring more people out. And with more people, we will be able to go bigger and better year over year.
Indeed. Finally, Minister, what lasting impression do you want St. Martin to leave at CARIFESTA 2025?
That we are not just our Carnival, that we are more than that, and that we have persons that represent the soul and the spirit of this country every single day, and often with little recognition, and that this is their opportunity to shine on that regional stage, and that we also can engage in the type of cultural diplomacy, as you said, that the rest of the region has already been doing for decades. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I know that we will leave a lasting, solid impression on CARIFESTA. Barbados won't
Minister
miss.
Gumbs, Minister Gumbs, thank you for sharing your vision and for leading this important cultural mission. Thank you so much for being a guest inside government.
Thank you. Thank you.
St. Martin's presence at CARIFESTA 2025 is made possible through the work of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport and the dedication of our artists, cultural practitioners, and coordinators. You can catch this and other Inside Government features on demand at facebook.com/SXMGOV. And we invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Government of St. Martin. And we invite you to also tune in for audio playback on Our Culture, Our Heritage, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM. On behalf of the Department of Communication and my colleagues at the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, I'm Cedric Peterson. Thanks for tuning in.